Thanks for joining us. I'm Alex Case-Cohen, the District Manager for the Pend Oreille Conservation District. We are up in the town of Metaline on Riverside Avenue, speaking with Brian Smiley and Pete Daggett about a potential stream bank stabilization project that will protect critical infrastructure.
Yeah, I'm Brian Smiley, as former Street Commissioner, Water Commissioner here in the town of Metaline. Presently I'm County Commissioner for Pend Oreille County in District 3. Beyond that, I've lived here on Riverside Avenue since I think 1996. So I'm pretty well aware of the issues that go on here on Riverside Avenue. One of the things that we should be aware of is the main sewer main for the town of Metaline does go through the roadbed here. All of the town drains this direction, and then it goes on down to the sewer treatment plant. So that's pretty critical infrastructure here. When the floods do come and when the river rises to a certain point, the current does direct into this bank, into Riverside. Further up, about where the yellow sign is up here, where the other street comes in 97, the river did come over this street. Where the trucks are here and where the camera is here, it would have been maybe 5 or 6 feet of water. The bank on the east side of the river probably has been reduced by about 8 or 9 feet since I moved in here in the 90s. Wow. We used to be able to park our cars across there and have a picnic table across there, and now if we walk further up there, you can see there's 3 or 4 feet. In fact, there was many more trees along the bank here, and every few years, the river's been undercutting them trees. They fall in the river, and they're gone with the high water. So that's a little bit of the history that's gone on here. And then further up on the very south end, we can see some actual kind of landslides that are threatening into people's yard there.
Hey, my name is Pete Daggett. I'm Mayor of Metaline. I got on the town council back in 2007. I became the mayor in 2010. And really about all of the town is capable of doing is trying to maintain and keep things from deteriorating. Yeah, it's become a real concern to everybody, that especially the people who live on the road, but everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, it's really a good question to ask, is why would those that don't live here on Riverside be concerned with this project? For those that live in the rest of the town of Metaline, the concern they should have is the threat to the main sewer main that drains the sewer system for the town of Metaline is here on Riverside. The whole town is sloped gradually towards the river, and the last sewer main that goes on down to the sewage treatment plant is here in this roadbed, Riverside Avenue here in Metaline. So this bank erosion is a long-term threat to that sewer main, and we can see by the progression of the erosion that it's just a matter of time before that causes a serious and immediate threat to that sewer main. And if that were to happen, if there was some kind of a catastrophic failure of that sewer main, it would also pose a threat to those that live up and down the river from here on down even into the Columbia, if that sewer would drain then into the Pend Oreille River. So that's a threat as well to the whole river system. Alex, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. So another key component is restoring fish habitat. Again, we are in a dammed system, so it's nowhere near what it used to be. But if we begin to restore our shorelines to look like they naturally had, less rock, having more vegetation, a gentler slope, and potentially less sediment in the river, we can begin to restore that habitat, impact temperature. If we're revegetating along the river, it may over time lessen the temperature, which is ideal for salmonids and other fish that have historically called this river home. Which is of course important to the economy and the overall well-being of our ecosystems. So I'm here at Metaline on Riverside Avenue with Scott Jungblom from the PUD. I've invited him out here to give his take on the potential stream bank stabilization project that will take place here ideally next year in order to protect the critical infrastructure on the street. So, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Scott Jungblom. I've started out at the Conservation District in Newport, working on bank stabilization projects like this for mostly private landowners that have a problem, don't know how to deal with it, and they need the different agencies' resources. It was just a conduit to connect people with the funds that were available to do work like that and get them the help they need. So I learned a little bit about bank stabilization projects like this during that. And then at the PUD we have a bank stabilization fund that's available to help pay for some of the costs like this in the Box Canyon Reservoir. So that's why I'm here.
Great. So do you mind sharing with us a little bit about what can be done on this steep bank that will protect it for that 100-year term that you were speaking about?
So there's a lot of different options on how you might approach a project like this, but the most common one in our reservoir is to put a hardened toe or the bottom of the bank with some type of riprap or larger gravel with a sediment filter underneath, because if you put large stuff in there, the water scours behind it if you've got fine sediments underneath, and it just scours your riprap away and it falls down the bank. So you have to make sure that you put either a packed gravel bed underneath there that can't pull out through the cracks in the larger rock, or some type of a mechanical sediment filter underneath your riprap on the toe of the bank. And then you fill in with either smaller gravel or plantable soil on the less steep portion of the bank above that, so that you can put vegetation in there that will reduce the velocity of water coming by during flood events. If the bank is too steep and too close to the road, like we have in a couple spots along here, sometimes you have to run the riprap shell, if you will, higher up the bank because you don't have a slope that's gradual enough that you can keep topsoil and vegetation on. In those cases, you can put pockets of topsoil in there to plant through because the vegetation, once it grows, will roughen the texture of the stream bank and slow the velocity of water down as it comes by. If you've got boat wakes or wave action, it'll slow down that energy and disrupt it before it hits the shoreline and keeps your erosion down altogether. But those are just some of the techniques we use.
Great.
The other habitat piece I'd like to add to it is if you can get decent trees, especially cottonwood and ponderosa pine, revegetation along the shoreline, that riparian habitat is essential to other sensitive species in the area like bald eagles. So right across the way we have a nesting pair of bald eagles that have been there for 15 to 20 years now, and of the eagle habitat that we have along the river, about 95% of them are in one of those two tree species, cottonwood or ponderosa pine, and they love riparian edge habitat like this along the shoreline. So trees that grow up, they make habitat for different bird species, and when they fall into the water, a lot of people don't like to see that, but that's what makes fantastic fish habitat. It both slows down the velocity of water with a tree down in the shoreline, and it produces cover for young fish.
So we've identified the goals and the need for this stream bank stabilization project. Next is the process. So the town of Metaline has worked with the Pend Oreille Conservation District for the first fund. The first grant that they've received was for engineering funds, and we've had our engineer come out and create a design. So we've got the riprap at the toe, we have resloping, potentially adding some fill or soil as we've talked about, and then of course the important part is the revegetation. The stage that we're at now is applying that plan, because again, it's a plan, it doesn't necessarily represent exactly what is going to happen. We need to have, again, submitting permits, those would go to the county. They also go to the Department of Ecology, the Army Corps of Engineers, and Department of Fish and Wildlife to make sure that the project meets all of the requirements. At that point, we would have a contractor come out on site. They would give us a bid further details on what the design will look like, and from there, it's a matter of working in what's known as the work window. So it's typically mid-July to the end of August when the water is at its lowest flow, and there is the least potential for impacting fish or other river habitat and river species. So we are waiting to hear back on the permits, and then the next step is, of course, speaking with the contractors. So I look forward to showing you all what will take place with this project in the future.